Hey everyone, I'm PJ Grisar, a staff writer at The Forward, and welcome to The Forward and ChaiFlicks' Q&A with the director and stars of Streit's Matzah and The American Dream. Before we get started, we'd like to thank the people at ChaiFlicks and the people at The Forward who helped put this together. It's Dina Cooperman, Jay Ehrlich, and Gabrielle Brooks.
Hi, I'm Irene Katz Connelly, and like PJ, I am also a staff writer at The Forward. Before we start the discussion, we just want to let you know that tomorrow you'll be getting a recording of the talk in your email inbox, as well as a Forward subscription offer. We're also live on Facebook right now if you'd like to share a link with your friends. Gabby, who's running the Zoom, is, I think, going to put a link in the chat for that. If you have any questions you'd like asked, please ask in the Q&A section, which you'll see at the bottom of your screen. And let us know where you're joining from in the chat section. There's two different functions. Q&A is for questions that you want us to ask the panelists, and chat is for just chatting and letting us know where you're from and any comments that you might have. Great. So today we're here to talk about Streit's Matzah and the American Dream, which is a documentary that traces this iconic brand, Streit's Matzah, which is now America's last family-owned matzah bakery. Streit's opened its doors in 1925, and when it began, it was serving mostly the immigrant community on the Lower East Side. Now, Streit's is in its fifth generation of family ownership, and it's contending with all the challenges that small business owners face in the 21st century. Most recently, and covered in the documentary, that includes a relocation from its original premises to a factory in Orangeburg in Rockland County. On this panel today, we have the film's director, Michael Levine, and two of its stars, Aron Yagoda and Aron Gross, who are co-owners at Streit's, cousins, and fourth and fifth generation matzah makers. So welcome, all of you.
Thank you for having us.
It's nice to be here.
So Michael, maybe you could start us off. Tell us a little bit about how you learned about Streit's and when you decided that you needed to make this documentary.
Well, I'd known about Streit's growing up. I'd eaten Streit's growing up, and I had lived down the Lower East Side for quite a while, for a bunch of years, and actually passed by the factory many times, not knowing that it was there. So I'd always had an interest in making some sort of film about the neighborhood. My family goes way back, came to the Lower East Side over 100 years ago. I grew up in New Jersey, but came back here, as soon as I could. So it was always an area, of interest for me. One day I happened to be passing by the Streit's factory, not knowing that's what it was. And their location on Rivington Street, the matzah ovens came all the way almost right out to the street. The people would be picking the matzah off the end of the line and putting it onto the conveyors. Occasionally, I didn't realize at the time, they would just hand out matzah to passersby out the window. And it just so happened that one day I was one of those passersby. I peeked inside and got a hot matzah handed to me right out of the oven. I guess after a few seconds, and someone who was working there kind of noticed that I was just still standing there, just in astonishment. They invited me to take a look inside, and I walked inside, and it was like, going into that building was like walking into 1920s New York City. I mean, it was just like an amazing experience of just, all this machinery and everybody working and all this that you would have never known was there, because it was just in these 4 converted tenement buildings that otherwise you might just assume were apartments. And certainly not a manufacturing business, a 5th generation Jewish bakery. And so talking to the people working there, and then talking to the Streit family, it became very apparent very quickly that there was so much history there and just a great story to be told. And they were so willing and happy to share the story. So it was thrilling to be able to be able to tell the story and get it on film.
Yeah, well, I'd love to ask the cousins a bit about sort of that story. I mean, there's, in some ways it's kind of, we have this 1925 opening of the factory, but it even sort of predates that and begins with both of your namesakes. Could you tell us a little bit about how Streit's kind of got started?
Yeah, we got started down on Pitt Street. and we always knew this, by the way. We knew we started a couple blocks from where we were up until 2015. But we actually learned a lot about our roots from Michael. When Michael really started delving into the history of the company, he actually found the exact location where we began. And then we actually got into that building and walked around. And in the basement of the building were still the original
Remnants of
the remnants of the original oven, which was 2.5 stories high, a big rotary oven that was the hand matzah bakery. There was actually some old wooden boxes that said Streit and Weinberg. So Aron Streit was an immigrant who landed on the Lower East Side. He started up a hand matzah bakery with Rabbi Weinberg. And like you said previously, it was to service that neighborhood. You know, that there was a huge Jewish population on the Lower East Side, like everyone knows. And we built that factory there with a local rabbi in order to supply Passover matzah, you know, for the holiday. In 1925 was when he decided to take it to the next level and automate and modernize, and made it into the machine bakery, which we were for 90 years up until 2015. So there were really we didn't really make many changes up until the time we moved, you know, so there was no one alive left from the original time where we decided to build it. So the move we had undertaken in 2015 was a struggle for us. But you know, my great grandfather, Aaron's great grandfather, built an amazing plant on the Lower East Side, amazing factory, almost 100 years ago.
Yeah, Michael really did a great job of documenting all that for us, because we would have left that history behind. And he found, you know, he made the contact with the person that owned the building that on Pitt Street, and he also went back and found a lot of that stuff. So he really documented our history for us that unfortunately we probably never would have done. So we have a big thanks to Michael for doing that. He came to us one day. I didn't know if it was if he was being serious or not when he wanted to make a documentary, but it turned out to be great, and he did a really good job, and we're really thankful for that.
And the crazy thing, when he first initially came to us, we had no intention of moving at the time. You know, we had spoken about it for many years on and off, and some of us were all for it, some of us were very much against it. But when Michael first started filming, I think you were filming for a good 3 years. But when you first started, there was moving wasn't in the cards, and it kind of evolved when he was there filming.
We only moved to mess up the ending of his movie.
But it was a blessing to have him come into our lives and document our family history, and we're very grateful that we met him.
Yeah, I want to go back to what Michael said about sort of stumbling on the factory and being handed a piece of hot matzah. Is that that's such a fun anecdote? Is that something that you often do? Do you often invite people into the factory to see what's going on, or was Michael just lucky? Or
no, on Rivington Street after school, we were next to a school, and after school the kids would come by and they knock on the window, and they would stick the guys that worked there. They would give the kids, you know, a little after school snack. That's how it started. Even there was a guy every day who showed up with his dog, and the dog would jump up to the window, and they would give the dog the matzah, and he'd walk down the block with the matzah in his mouth.
Yeah, it was a nice, you didn't realize it until we left. You know, now we're in a great building, we're in a great area up here in Rockland County. But you didn't realize how special it was to be, you know, manufacturing on the Lower East Side and within a community. So like you said, we were right on the street. The matzah basically came 5 feet from the front wall of the building, and the pickers were standing there taking the matzah right out of the oven, and they were basically right on the street level.
Yeah, and when the neighborhood found out we were leaving, we didn't think they really cared that we were still there. We would get like someone spray paint on the door, "We'll miss you guys," or "Thanks, Strites," and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool.
It's a funny way of communicating.
Yeah,
Exactly.
One thing that I loved about the documentary, I think this was actually kind of incidental in the film, but it really stood out to me, is when you two, both Arons, talked about, you know, how intertwined your family was with other big Jewish brand families, like members of your family being married into the Manischewitz family, things like that. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what it was like growing up with these sort of big name American Jewish food traditions as part of your just family life.
that was his side of the family.
Yeah, that was the gross side of the family. So there were 5 brothers, and 3 of them married into there were 4 matzah families, but 3 of them married into different matzah families. It was a little bit older than my time, so I just would hear stories about it. You know, at Passover Seder, they'd all It all had their brand on the table, and everybody fighting over whose was better. You know, it was Horowitz Margaretin, which was in Long Island City. It was Monteshevitz, which was out in Cincinnati, and it was Streit's, which was in Manhattan. So it was more like a friendly rivalry, let's say. But like you said earlier, we are the last United States matzah bakery. We're still the last. We've been the last that's family owned and operated for many years. But it's an honor to still be operating and still being, owning this as a family and running it as a family.
Yeah, I would love to talk to everyone really. So to Michael and both Arons about sort of filming in the factory. I mean, I know that you guys had tours back at the old Rivington location, and I'm sure now that you're bigger in Orangeburg and have like a little bit of a museum concern going on, that's happening too. But what is it like to sort of, be weaving in and out with like a camera, like dealing with that, during production? What was that experience like?
Yeah, that definitely took some getting used to for me. There's some very, very tight spaces that clearly everybody who worked there and everybody in the family had maneuvered through about 10,000 times. With my I certainly got knocked in the head by matzah conveyors for about the first 6 months I was filming there, but eventually kind of you find your way around. But it's just, there are so many different rooms and so many different things going on. It's like you're always finding new spaces and something new to explore. So yeah, it's an amazing building. And
we gave Michael carte blanche. You could go anywhere you wanted. We basically said, do whatever you want, make it good, and enjoy yourself. And he did an amazing job. But he was there. You were there all the time. He was there all the time, filming wherever and whenever.
Yeah, he did a great job with the editing and stuff. I mean, he would just became part of the factory, part of the family. It wasn't like, oh, you're on camera. Everyone just became very nonchalant. You wouldn't even know he was there, unless you had the little microphone on for the day. And, I guess he would try to bleep out, anything that we said that wasn't right. But other than that, he did really a great job of editing it from thousands of hours. And it was no script or anything. It was just all, off the top of our heads, whatever we were saying at the time, and the interactions with the employees that he befriended them, and no one ever minded that he was there.
But also when you first started, when you first came to us, I guess there were two parameters. One in which we couldn't do another documentary for a couple of years, which we said, no problem. And then the second was, we couldn't pay into it, which we also said, no problem. But it also meant something, because it wasn't just a fluff piece. This wasn't an advertisement. He was coming in here to make a quality film, and it wasn't going to be just, some sort of corporate advertising or something.
Right.
Like
We didn't
that.
want it to be an infomercial.
Right. And we were worried sometimes, like, how's this going to come across? But I think you did an amazing job, and I'm glad we just put that trust in your hands.
The greatest thing he ever did, he should win an award for directing, because Tony, the star of the show, Tony Zapata, was he really put every good thing that Tony ever said into that 1 minute of dialogue.
Tony had a lot of great things to say. That was great. And
we still get calls. We get calls about, how's Tony doing? What's Tony up to? How's Tony? Everybody loves him. But sorry, I interrupted.
No. I was going to say, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it meant so much to have that access, and just that you guys and everybody at the factory was so open to talking. I mean, it definitely, it's all, the way the film came out is definitely a testament to how, to everybody there and to the work that you've all, done. So I thank you so much for that.
I have questions for both of you about filming. I mean, for you guys who were in front of the camera, Aron and Aron, what was it sort of like to have all these sort of daily actions being filmed? I imagine that, it's not your career isn't being in front of the camera, your career is making matzah. So I feel like that must be an adjustment for you. And Michael, I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about what it was like to make this film over such a long time. Like 2 years is sort of a long time to be enmeshed in one story. And I wonder if it was ever hard for you to sort of like zoom out of the day-to-day and think about like the big picture. What is this film going to be?
As far as the filming, I think it had to take place over an extended period of time. First of all, just to get to know everybody and to really have enough time to understand people's stories and to understand the way the business works and everything that was going on there. There were definitely some times where I would, just step back for a couple of weeks to try and give myself some perspective. Because you're kind of, I was filming and editing at the same time. And so you're kind of going back and forth, and as far as the last year of filming, which took place, once it was decided that the move was happening up to Rockland County, that was a whole nother story. It was unexpected. I was actually right at the point where I thought the film was finished. We had submitted to festivals, and we had the final cut ready to go, and then got the call that this move was happening, and then kind of had to rethink. How are we going to address this? Are we going to address this? And ended up doing an entire another year or so of filming and editing to make sure that story got into it. So I think it was important that we kept going as long as we did with it, and very fortuitous that we started when we did, so that before any kind of decisions were being made about leaving the Lower East Side, so that people could see the business in full bloom in the neighborhood.
I mean, most of the time I didn't, other than, familiarity with Michael, if we just would wear a microphone and say, and we didn't really think about it. We just hoped that he was going to edit it really well at the end. And he just said, try to be normal. And after a while, we didn't even realize he was there. He'd sit in on a meeting. He'd walk around during production. He went wherever he went, whenever he wanted. We weren't hiding anything from him. And, like Aron said, he had full run of the place. So.
Yeah, he made you very comfortable. I was the last, 6 months of filming, we were going through a tough time. This is when we were deciding to move, and we're a family business. Everyone gets along very well, but we did have some differences of opinions on whether to move, where to move, and all that. So it was a very tough time, very difficult time emotionally, and just very trying in my life. But you were always a nice break, actually. So when we could sit down and talk about stuff, it's almost like therapy. Go sit and talk to Michael about what's going on. But they say you're always around. It was very nonchalant. It was very easy. It was very easy having you.
If I can just add, the fact that you were going through these incredibly difficult decisions and allowed me to keep filming there, and we're very honest about struggling with the decision that you had to make. And to allow that process, to be on film. That was, that was amazing. I just really appreciate that you allow that to happen, because I think it gives, the audience hopefully also an honest view of what it takes to run a business, to run a multi-generational business. Like you have, and what it went into, making that very difficult decision to leave the neighborhood. So I really,
I think I did disappear for a little while. It was just mostly during Passover time, but I'd go out to the warehouse. We had a warehouse in Jersey at the time, so I was spending a little bit extra time out there. It's still today, everyone thinks we moved to New Jersey. I'm like, no, we moved to New York. We stayed it's not New York City, but we're in Rockland County, just north of the GW Bridge in New York State. So we remained a New York State entity. We didn't move to Jersey. But we still get that all the time, that we moved to Jersey.
Right. Well, I mean, just in terms of, this movie clearly chronicles, a monumental shift in the way you guys are operating. Well, you keep a lot of the machinery and stuff that we see, but, just in terms of a disruption of 90 years of tradition. But of course, since this wrapped, we have what I imagine must have also been a very disruptive change just with the pandemic. I would love it if you could speak to us a bit about sort of what that process has been like, and how it's kind of affected the business.
Well, just from the move aspect of it, we shut the doors July 2nd, 2015, right? That was our last day of baking on the Lower East Side. I think we had 2 months to get out. And then we didn't have a factory built here. at the time. We bought a building that in that October,
Right.
in Orangeburg, New York, and then started moving equipment in, and we didn't really have it running for a good year later. So we were outsourcing everything. And luckily, we had some nice contracts with some people, with some suppliers. There are only a few places in the world to buy the products that we produce. But we relied on outsourcing till about 2017. And during that time, I think we really learned of the quality of our brand, because we were getting a ton of mail saying, "What have you guys done? It's not what we remember. You guys have ruined a family business." And
we have a tagline on the book, "The Taste of a Memory." We were getting, "This is not the memory this is not the taste I remember."
Yeah. So we tried to get back with everyone, and it was really important just to get our story out, that this is not the final product. This is a transition, and we're going to be up and running in 2018, which we were just still we've had a difficult time getting up to speed. And it really wasn't until 2019 where I feel like we're making a great product, identical to what we did on Rivington Street, but even more consistent. And now we also have more capacity than we did down there. The main reason why we ended up leaving was we were over capacity. We were selling everything we could possibly make. There was no room for growth, and it really didn't make much sense to be manufacturing in Manhattan.
Yeah, we had no loading zone. We had a loading, there was a loading zone. We had no loading dock, so anybody could park there. So there were times we couldn't get trucks in because a guy who was fixing the sink across the street had his van parked there all day, and we couldn't load. And also we couldn't get these 53 footers down the block to pick up product in Manhattan, and it just became really difficult.
Yeah, but up until 2019, I didn't really, we had a lot of doubts, and did we make the right decision to try to build this place? Because it's very different from what we had in Rivington Street. The process is identically the same, but the machinery is a lot more modernized, and we retained many of the workers that you see in the film. And from Angelo, our head mechanic on Rivington Street, is our head mechanic here. And he went from working on machinery that was built in the 20s, 30s, and 40s to stuff that was built in 2015. It's very different. So there was a learning curve for all of us, but we wanted to keep as many of the original people that could make it here as possible, just so we could be sure that when the product does come out, they're the ones that are going to know that if it tastes right and if it's consistent to what we were doing. And so they were an integral part of what we achieved up here. And then working through the pandemic, we never shut down. We baked all the way up to Passover last year, which Passover was a little bit later than this year. We shut down for the week of Passover, and we were considered an essential business. So we actually operated throughout the whole pandemic. There was a lot of COVID throughout the factory. I don't know, I got it, Aron didn't get it. But a lot of people in the plant did. Everyone, did well with it and everything. But we were just very careful. It was very difficult. Trying time was very weird,
Right, everyone already wears gloves, so we didn't have the problem with the glove issue. And we just spaced some people further apart, and then they started wearing masks, and we got through it pretty well. We managed well for that.
Change lunch shifts, change break shifts, that kind of stuff.
Right.
But yeah, it's been very weird. Aron commutes from Long Island. The commute
was helpful.
The commute during COVID was very easy, getting from Long Island to Rockland County. But other than that, nothing has really has changed, other than we're getting stronger and healthier as a company, just learning this new operation in a 100-year-old business.
Actually, as the pandemic started getting worse last year, people were buying everything on the supermarket shelves. So people were looking at buying matzah just because it stayed longer than bread. So people that were very nervous of when they'd have food again started loading up on matzah as well. So we got a few customers from that as well.
You mean people who wouldn't have normally been buying matzah at all?
Right.
Maybe, yeah, possibly. I mean, it's a long shelf life, shelf stable product. I think there possibly could have been a little bit of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a crisis food from the beginning. So
yeah. We have, what are those people who buys matzah?
I don't know, some preppers. The preppers website. I think matzah was one of the things on there. I don't know.
You're kidding.
Yeah, I think it lasts a while in a cupboard.
Was it hard to get the product out to people at the beginning? I know that Passover last year was like 4 weeks into the pandemic. I know I couldn't get a lot of foods, and I wonder if you had problems just with like supply chain and getting matzah to people for Passover.
Most of our distribution network, so we really start shipping Passover in January, mid to late January. So most of the product was already distributed in our distributors' warehouses, which then goes to retailer shelves wherever you are throughout the country. But we did do a lot more online. Like we have a website, our Strites website. So we did a lot of boxing up here.
More so than we ever
shipping
did.
directly to consumers. Yeah, way more than ever.
We used to get a few a week, and then we were staying until late at night, making boxes for everybody. And a lot of times we were hand packing them ourselves at night. And then a couple of times if the box wouldn't fit right, because it's not designed to be shipped that way, we'd put extra stuff in the box and people read, I didn't order this. We said, I just keep it, so we got through it.
Yeah, we definitely got a lot more, online sales than in prior years. But we were just doing everything we could just to get everything out. It was a very confusing time for everyone, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to everyone a bit about, Aaron's, you've touched on, sort of how through Michael, you really learned kind of a lot about your family history and, found the Pitt Street location, things like that. And then Michael, also for you, I'd love to just some of the big discoveries, whether it's kind of about the family or about sort of the history of the Lower East Side in general, going through this process, what were you guys surprised to learn?
Sure. Actually, the interesting thing, the story about finding the original location on Pitt Street, that actually, that had been like a question for the whole, probably first 6 months of making the film, trying to figure out where this place was. And it ended up being Anthony, one of the workers at Strites, who actually had the answer. We had been trying to figure this out, and one day I just happened to bring it up with him that I was looking for the original location, and he immediately was like, "Oh, yeah, 65 Pitt Street," and I was, like, how do you know this? And apparently, Anthony started working there in the early 80s, and when he started working there was a guy that he was working with who had been working there since before they moved to Rivington Street. So he had actually worked at the Pitt Street location. And he'd been working there for over 60 years. So Anthony, was the one who actually brought me over there, and I managed to find out who was living there now, and they were kind enough to allow us in their home. That a discovery like that was just amazing, and just I think representative of the kind of things that that you can discover that are on the Lower East Side that you may not know are there, even beyond just the factory on Rivington Street, me not knowing that was there, that like nobody knew that this place on Pitt Street was there, and had just been hidden essentially for the last almost 100 years, and just just watching how seriously the process of making matzah is taken, learning just the process itself, but also just understanding how seriously and with how much love like the people who work in the factory and the family put into making their product and put into into staying as long as possible in the neighborhood, because they definitely could have left long before they did, and so that was pretty amazing to see. Or he said to see them leave, but just amazing that they stayed as long as they did, and great that they're so doing what they do. So
yeah, and also just to see all the reaction from the people from the film. We learned a lot about what we meant to people. The film's aired, a couple of times, many times on PBS and stuff. And every time when it does, we get a lot of people that write in and with some great stories. And how it seems like many people had family members that worked
Right.
at Strites, which and we get a lot of these stories. Oh, your great grandfather did this, you did this, or and it means so it means so much to us, but this film has really connected us back to so many people in so many ways. So it's been very great.
And on a similar note, actually, talk about the response to the film. When we started funding the film originally, we started funding it through Kickstarter, and people would send in contributions, and but instead, along with their say $20 that they would send in like full stories about their connection that they had to Strite's, the Lower East Side, to and how much it really meant to them, and that they had gotten matzah out of the window when they were a kid 60, 70 years ago, or or that Strite's had essentially like fed their family during the Depression, and things like that. Just these incredible stories. Doing a screening down in Florida, someone came up to me with, and just who had a family member who had worked there, and showed me a picture from opening day of the factory in 1925 that I had never seen before. So, it just seems like so many people have such a connection to Strite's. It's pretty amazing.
And that's honestly what I was very concerned. I was one of the ones that wasn't quite ready to move at the time, and I was very concerned that, forget about the quality of the product, if we could reproduce it, that was a big concern, but also that identity we had just from being on the Lower East Side and being part of the Lower East Side. I was very concerned of what a move would mean to that identity. And that's kind of what we're really trying to make sure in this new place. Be a part of the community, bring people through COVID. We can't do any of that now, and we haven't been able to do it for the last year. But we really want to figure out. We're never going to be back, with the Manhattan Lower East Side feel, but be entrenched in the community and bring people into our family, and keep that, perpetuate what our great grandfather had done for so many years.
Yeah, the old factory was really a lot of fun, and almost every day, someone would come by. Oh, I'm from out of town. I never saw. Sure, come on. Well, we don't really have insurance to bring you around, but don't get hurt, and we'll take you around. And famous people came by, and anyone that knew any connection to Strite's, we always had time to give them a tour and walk them around the factory, and try to make a memorable experience for them.
So we want to continue that tradition, up here in the more suburban setting.
Yeah. Who are some of the famous people that were interesting that came by?
Let's see. Keanu Reeves. They were shooting the Devil's Advocate across the street once.
Oh yeah.
They did 2 episodes of Law and Order in our factory, and Alan Alda would come by. Mayor Bloomberg, he wasn't the mayor at the time, but Mike Bloomberg would send people down to buy matzah. Mayor Giuliani would come down to do his yearly Passover press conference there. Who else did we have there? They shot the movie Now You See Me there with Woody Harrelson and Mark Ruffalo.
Isla Fisher, yeah. Morgan Freeman came by. Yeah, it's just people would pop in, So we don't get as many pop-ins up here, so it's kind of dull.
Right.
Gets kind of lonely up here in
all
suburbia.
The old Borscht Belt guys. When we were going through pictures, there was like Buddy Hackett and a bunch of other guys that would be there that would come to the factory. It was really a lot of fun. I missed that building.
I know, you can't do that now where you are in Orangeburg, but what do you think, after the pandemic, it would look like for you guys to be cultivating that kind of sense of community up there?
We're going to have a little museum, basically, with a lot of some of the old machinery. And one of the things we're actually talking with Michael about, he has so much, B-roll footage and stuff. So he could actually have the sound of each of all these old machineries that we could actually set up in our lobby here. And then we want to bring, JCCs through, yeshivas through, local elementary, high schools through. I mean, there is the Jewish connection when we're making matzah, but it's also a modern food facility that we could bring people through. So I do want to be a solid part of this community and open our doors up to people.
And if you're driving by with your family, you're knocking on your door, we'll still give you a tour.
Right.
I want to ask, someone asked in the Q&A how many Streit family members are still involved besides you two. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, on a day-to-day basis, it's us two, and then it's still owned by I think 11 of us. So it's owned by the fourth and fifth generation. The third generation is no longer, no one in the third generation is alive. And it's still all owned by all of us, even though we're spread around. We just run it on the day-to-day basis. And the other cousin, Alan, that you saw in there, he retired last year. So he was the first person ever retired from Streit's. Usually the people have been here so long, they usually just pass away here. Not in a funny way, but we have lifers. No one just, we have very little factory turnover. I mean, Michael, the guy you saw who worked the sheet, he's still here now. He's here 30 plus years and he commutes every day from downtown Brooklyn.
Wow. Yeah, maybe we can talk a little bit more about the employees. I know someone asked in the Q&A how many employees are still with you in your new factory. So maybe you can address that. And Michael, maybe you can talk about the experience of getting to know all these different idiosyncratic people.
People also asked how Anthony is doing, as anticipated.
We haven't seen Anthony. I've reached out to him a couple times. He moved out to Vegas and was doing some carpentry. And then Angelo, who was our maintenance guy down on Rivington Street, he is with us here every day. He's the best. He commutes up from Staten Island every day, which isn't easy. He actually ran into Anthony, I don't know, 2 years ago on the Lower East Side. He was riding his bike by. We've invited him up, but he's a part of the Lower East Side community. Didn't want to really make the trip.
He also, Anthony worked for us on and off. Like he would disappear for a few months and then come back and we just give him his job back and then he'd disappear again for a while. He was great though. Like the story in the movie where, when we had a little fat fire, he wanted to put it out with his little garden hose. I mean, Anthony, if you needed Anthony, he was there for you in a heartbeat every time. So he was definitely a unique guy, but he'd be there on Monday, Tuesday, and then show up the next Thursday. So
we have, I would say, 10 guys still from Rivington Street. As we've been up here for a couple of years, some guys have retired actually. But Michael Abramov, who was on the sheeter, he's still there. We had Michael Mushiev, who was up in the mix room. He retired a year ago. Angelo is here. We have Negron here, Freddie, Jose, a lot of the guys from the film you recognize.
Yeah, we still have about 3 30+ year guys and about 6 or 7 20+ year guys that are still here.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
Oh, I was gonna say I actually did hear from Anthony a couple of months ago. He just called me up out of nowhere. I hadn't heard from him in probably about a year and a half, and he's apparently back living in the neighborhood. He's living in the Lower East Side, so seems to be doing well. So there's that's good news. But yeah, I mean it was amazing just meeting just the I think of like the group of people that was working at Streit's kind of as a as representative of the diversity of like a cross section of the Lower East Side. They're just like people from all different backgrounds, and people were whether they immigrated here or were born on the Lower East Side or live somewhere else in the city. But they all came together at Streit's, and so it was a great experience getting to meet everybody. And
I think if you did the film now up here, you're going to find it very similar. A couple of the old faces from the old film, but we still have an extremely diverse group of people up here now. And it's also that everyone is so, Aron and I were always out there with everybody, joking around, talking. We're serious, we're getting the job done, but we have some characters here, some new characters.
Yeah, and we still make it a family business. We had someone who said, "Oh, can I bring my sister to work?" She brought a sister. Now there's 8 family members of a different family that work here, which is working great until last year. They all had to go to a family function. We were missing 8 people on one day. But other than that, we have family within family that works here.
Yeah, someone just asked in the Q&A, why, if there was a reason that there are no female employees in the factory at the documentary, but it sounds like you just mentioned one. So I wonder if that's a coincidence or anything.
We have a lot of female employees here. Maybe a third of them are female employees. Back then, I think we only had one female that ever showed up and asked for a job. We give everybody a job. We try to give people in the neighborhood a job. Of course, it had to be, Shomer Shabbos Jews before the matzah went into the oven. But after the oven, the rabbis were okay with, anybody. And we employ people from the Lower East Side or wherever local communities there were. And we only had one woman ever show up for the job. We had a ladies' room that was never used.
Yeah.
We built the ladies' room just in case, and it just sat there with a lock on it.
But the thing, we also there wasn't much turnover. So a lot of the people that were there for so long. And just maybe from the 60s, 70s, the workforce wasn't as much female. But now up here, we have quite a few.
Well, we did have the two women in the store. Bella, was she there during the movie? She might have left right before the movie.
If anybody out there remembers Bella from the store,
yeah,
Bella was the best. Bella worked for us for, I don't know, 30 years. Yeah. And would just yell at any customer that came into the store.
Right. They would shop in the store. Bella would yell at them. Then they'd come to the office and tell us how rude Bella was. And then we'd go in and tell Bella, she would yell at us.
Yeah, we couldn't do anything. We were too scared of Bella.
You just mentioned something aside. Of course, it has to be Shomer Shabbos Jews before the matzah goes into the oven. But I'm sure there are people here who don't know why that's an of course. So maybe you could talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, and also about the 18-minute prep time for
right.
The kosher lepesa matzah.
Right, matzah, all it is a cracker, unless you have these restrictions. So it all starts with basically the flour from the process, out of which it's cut in the fields and then milled at the flour mill. It has to be done a dry milling process. Water can't be introduced into the process. Then the truck gets sealed, gets brought over to our facility. A rabbi unseals it, and we pump it into silos here. We have two 60,000-pound silos that each one holds about one truck, and we got to deliver every morning here. So it starts with the flour process, and then the water has to sit. It sits in holding tanks, and it has to rest for a 24-hour period prior to using it for Passover. So those are your two ingredients, flour and water, and those are the restrictions before production. Once production starts, the time and the flour first touch, it needs to be fully cooked out of the oven within 18 minutes. And anybody handling that product needs to be Shomer Shabbos Jewish person. So they need to be observe the Sabbath, basically. And they're the ones that are overseeing that process and making sure we're adhering to all the rules. And the process of mixing takes about 2.5 minutes. Sheeting, which is the process of layering the dough, layering it, putting it through the different rollers to get thinner and thinner and thinner, putting the dots in it, cutting it, and then sending it into the oven, takes about 6 minutes. And then cooking the product takes about 1.5 minutes. So we're actually out of the oven within 10 minutes, but then that's each bowl, right? So that's each bowl of 280 pounds needs to be out within 18 minutes. Any breakdown on the line that produces a hard clean, meaning everything has to be taken off, everything on the sheeter has to be thrown away. Everyone has to clean for about an hour, and then we restart up again like it's the beginning of the day. So there are a lot of restrictions when you're dealing with Passover matzah.
I guess you must really need the vacation after when you close down for Passover.
Yeah, I'm ready. We're a couple of days away. I have this beard. I usually don't have a beard, but this is kind of like my Passover beard. It's going to come off right before the holiday.
Oh, good. I'm glad you answered.
Usually you grow it for the Omer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So someone asked on the chat if with the new equipment, are you guys adding any more products? Are there things that you can do there product wise that you're looking to expand, or are you sticking to the classics?
We're sticking to the classics for now. We're really just trying to get the core strong. We did fall behind on production for so many years. We're there now though. So we're going to have a lot of R&D this summer. If anybody has any ideas, just send us some stuff at info@Strites. But we are going to get more into crackers.
Different flavors, more unique flavors.
Yeah, we can do different size crackers and things like that now. And then also some gluten-free and things of that nature. So yeah, we want to expand, basically just follow trends in the market, once we have our core solidified. And we're also looking into doing some hand matzah. So we were a hand matzah bakery, like we said, in 1916 to 1925. Then we converted into a machine bakery. we want to put a little hand matzah area in this new plant as well.
Michael, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the reception of the documentary since you've put it out into the world. I know you were sending it to festivals, and I'm sure that you have stuff to say about the reaction.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's been wonderful. I mean, I I wasn't, starting out making the film. I had no idea how far it would go. I was hoping that at least I would, we'd be able to finish it, but had no idea, whether we would find a distributor, find an audience for it, and like that. We were fortunate enough to find an amazing distributor in Menemcha Films, who, put the film out there and got it into theaters and got it into like festivals and and all kinds of different venues and online, and PBS and all these things, and so just very grateful for that, and I'm thrilled by the reaction to it, just because I came to just love the story that I found when I started filming, and it's the fact that hopefully it seems to have hopefully I've been able to communicate that story, because the reception that it's gotten seems to indicate that people are connecting with the family, and with the workers, and the same way that I did, and I have a very deep and long-standing love for the Lower East Side, and hopefully like that came across in the film. I think that people react to that, and also to at the same time appreciating that the family has managed to keep the business going up in Rockland. It's just it's kind of all the things that I hope to communicate seem to be the way people are receiving the film. That really means a lot to me, and I'm just grateful to have had the opportunity to make it, and for it to be able to find an audience the way it has. So, but I think that's just a testament to how many people have known and loved Strites for so long. I mean, it took less promotion than I thought maybe, because just there's just so many people who know and love the business. So.
Yeah, I know that you both said that people were reaching out to you with different stories about like what Strites meant to them. I wonder what were some of the most unexpected or surprising things that you heard after the movie came out.
Even when it plays every year, it's mainly memories of, I guess, the ones that touch the most of the generational people. They remember they were at Strites with their great grandmother and their grandmother and their mother and their daughter, and themselves, and how that became part of their year when they look at the pink box every Passover. I mean, people really have some heart-wrenching stories of how that pink box, because some people just call us the pink box because that's our standard Passover matzah, and how much it means to them when they sit around and they think about it, that the movie brings up a lot of stories that they forgot about, and it kind of rejuvenated that in their minds.
Yeah, so it comes from either like an actual visit down to the plant, or just they remember the pink box on their Seder table and telling us a story about some family time that they had. There was a podcast of someone with Uncle Jack, my uncle Aron's grandfather, the guy that worked there. He bought him his first bike,
oh yeah, right. There was a kid in the neighborhood, and my grandfather, he when he heard that movie, he went on this podcast saying that he wanted a bike or something, and my grandfather took him to the toy store around the corner and bought him a bike. And he still told that story to today, that Strites will always be part of his history because he remembers this bike, even though he became very successful and all that he still goes back to his childhood about this bike that he couldn't afford.
I mean, they're touching stories, and we get a lot of physical letters sent to us in the mail, still, emails, and we just want to always be open to the end user, be open to the Strites consumer, and listen, we were lucky enough to be born into this business, and it's a blessing to have it, and we want to cultivate it And I think Michael did a great job showing, at least showing them how much we do care. And I'm happy that it came across in the film, and we want to just, make
And we
sure
want
that
to
everyone
create new
knows that we're still
memories.
doing it. Yeah.
We want to create
100%.
new memories for new families.
Right.
Yeah, there's some memories coming up on the Q&A. Robin Gottlieb says wonderful memories of shopping before Passover at the Rivington Street store. Wants to know if you consider doing a pop-up for Passover 2020 for new childhood memories. And
We-
yeah, go ahead.
We did think about that, and we were talking last year of doing it, and that everything, pandemic, and then we got behind. But next Passover, I want to do something somewhere on the Lower East Side. Michael's there. He knows where the place are. Maybe we'll try to do something on the Lower East Side and get out the word. Just to have something down there for like the month leading up to the holiday.
Yeah.
And then we also want to, invite people up here as well, so we can see them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And someone else remembers their grandfather was an Orthodox rabbi in Chicago. Every year he got a big delivery from Strite's and a free, apparently.
Our head rabbi was Rabbi Soloveitchik.
And they're from Chicago.
So the Soloveitchik family, an amazing family. We still, Moshe Soloveitchik is still one of our supervising rabbis here. It was his father, but they're very entrenched in the Chicago community.
So Rabbi Aron would give us a list of please send packages to the following. So that gentleman was probably on that list.
Someone else asked us in the Q&A if any of your kids have plans, or anyone in the sixth generation has plans to come into the business. Have you been thinking about that?
His kids are young.
I'm not that old, right? Are they ready to kick me out already?
Well, maybe
No,
any of the 11 people who are still owners, if anyone has.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know, both of us started here very organically, so it wasn't like, we're coming into the business. I was working on the racetrack and I was working in the factory at nights. Aron was asked to work here on a temporary basis and then never left. And so we just want to make it a successful business. And, the sixth generation, seventh generation, eighth generation, I'm fifth. So I want to see it till the 10th at least.
Good luck.
Yeah, I won't be alive, but yeah, we'll see. So there are no plans right now, but we want to remain family.
Yeah, well, I think just to end, I'd love to know what everyone's Passover plans are.
I'm having Seder with my kids, and we keep it nice and small, especially with the pandemic. We had kind of a virtual small one last year. This year we're not going virtual. It's just going to remain pretty small. And
last year, like Aron said, ours was virtual as well. It was not that much fun. This year we have the grandparents are vaccinated, so we're gonna get together a little bit larger. There's gonna be 8 of us, so it's getting to prior, not like prior years, but it's getting back to normal, which we're very excited. And we're going to be, our last day here is going to be Friday. And we're just kind of cleaning up now, getting ready to shut it down.
Well, if you're in the neighborhood, you want to stop by, we'll always welcoming visitors.
Michael, what about you, Michael?
Yeah, I'm still gonna have to. It's gonna have to be virtual this year. Still one more year with my family there in New Jersey, and unfortunately I can't make it down there yet. But hopefully next year we'll be able to be there again. So
next year in person.
Exactly.
Next year in person.
Yes.
Well, we really appreciate you all taking time to talk to us, especially at, the busiest time of year for you. And I know a lot of people had so much to say in the chat and in the Q&A. And I think we will wish you a relaxing Pesach, and thank you so much to everyone who came. And I think Gabby will wind us down now.
Real quick, we want to thank everybody who was a part of this. Thank you again, Michael. You're amazing. And we owe a lot to you for getting this story out. And for everybody that's on here, just tell your friends, your family, tell everybody about Strites, about what we're trying to do here.
And we appreciate you. You're not just customers, you're part of our family too. So thank you, and hope we keep memories together for a long time.
Very well said.